There's a breeze rolling in from the Willamette tide. All of the Rose City on a mellow ride. When the clock hits 3, you know where to be. Chad Doing's on the air, setting Portland free. From the Moda Center glow to the downtown lights, he's the voice that carries you up through dinner time. Tune into Rip City Drive, 3 to 6, where PDX comes alive. On 6:20 a.m., let the good vibes play. Chad Smooth Talk will sail your stress away. Rip City Drive, your afternoon escape. Lock it in with Chad, he's the king of the airwaves. Talking Blazers hoops, every dunk, every win. Seahawks flying high, Hillsboro Hops playing again. From Oklahoma roots to the Oregon shore, Chad's got stories that keep you begging for more. Monday through Friday, he's your daily guide. Gift a gab on the mic, taking you for a ride. Tune in to Rip City Drive, 3 to 6, where PDX comes alive. On 6:20 a.m., let the good vibes play. Chad Smooth Talk will sail your stress away. Rip City Drive, your afternoon escape.
Hey, what's going on? 3 o'clock chat here. Rough weekend for the Trailblazers. They dropped back-to-back games Saturday and Sunday in Charlotte and Atlanta. Hawks get the win by 34 yesterday. Blazers gave up 30 points off of turnovers, and Portland now 29 and 32 on the year. 2 days off before they continue their 5-game road trip in Memphis on Wednesday. That game will tip off at 5. We'll have Blazers game day at 3 right here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday tomorrow. We do it each and every Tuesday. Your chance to win tickets. All you have to do is listen to me at 5 for your cue to call and get free Trailblazer tickets courtesy of your Portland Trailblazers and me. From the NFL, Saints expected to cut Marshawn Lattimore for cap savings. Chiefs to do the same with left tackle Jawan Taylor. It could save them $20 million. And the Texans have sent 2 picks to the Edwards Talking Combine at 520. Talking Combine at 520.
Live from the Coors Light Studios, it's time for the Rip City Drive, hosted by the crazy and often irrational Chad Doing. Coors Light, mountain cold refreshment. Choose chill.
There's about 7/10 of a second left. Now they put a couple of back on, so it's 1.1 to play. Blazers managed just 4 points in the last 5.5 minutes of this game. Inbound to Thompson, that'll do it. This one is over. Blazers now have a couple of days to rest up and think about this before heading to Memphis on Wednesday night. 135-101 the final score here at State Farm Arena.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
Boy, man, my man Travis on his final call. I will admit, that was some horrendous basketball on Saturday and Sunday. Final call. I will admit, that was some horrendous basketball on Saturday and Sunday. First off, the NBA can go to HE double hockey sticks. I have a great idea. Why don't we schedule a game in Charlotte that tips off at 10 o'clock West Coast time? Really fair for a team from the West Coast to play a game where they're getting ready at like 6 and 7 a.m. and they're on a West Coast clock. And they're on game number 2 of a 5-game road trip. Why? Because Charlotte just wanted to schedule a absolute guaranteed W by putting a West Coast team in that type of spot. And not only that, but no one should have to get up and work and cover a game and be subjected to a team or both teams really coming out of the gate slow because the game's so early. Horrendous basketball. Horrible. And as bad as that was, the Blazers followed that effort up with an even worse performance against the Atlanta Hawks yesterday. And that game was brutal. The defense, I would say, probably the worst defensive performance I've seen from them all year. The Hawks got a bunch of open looks. They got easy touches in the paint. They scored at the rim. They hit from three. And the Blazers, like usual, turned it over a bunch of times and struggled in points off turnovers. It was just a big bowl of wrong. And I'm not panicked. I'm not freaked out. It's frustrating because when you looked at the road trip on paper, you thought, okay, the first 4 games of the 5 are against teams that do not have winning records. That's a good thing. It's also against teams in the Eastern Conference. That's a good thing. But the problem is that the Blazers, without Shaedon Sharpe and without Deni Avdija, we're seeing their importance to what they bring to the squad. And that's really what it comes down to. Deni Avdija is a superstar player. He is by far the Trailblazers' best player. And you can see without him on the floor that the team lacks an identity. They don't really know who to lean on for the bulk of the scoring or for the facilitation. And then he looked good initially with the comeback, but Scoot over the last couple of games has been off. And you would hope that he could be the primary ball handler and be able to facilitate, but that hasn't happened. And, of course, he missed the entire season, and now he's working himself back into, a rhythm and game shape and all that kind of stuff. So just hideous basketball. And, of course, I thought the Blazers were going to tear it up, and they still got plenty of time left in the season. And they're going to be in the play-in, so the postseason play will be there. But, again, all of that was assuming health. The bottom line is they need Deni Avdija. He's that important to what they do, to their attack, to how they want to play on both ends. Deni Avdija is everything. And he makes everyone's life easier. That's what makes him so great. Everyone would love to play with Deni Avdija. I would, because if you're in the right spot, the defense is going to zero in on Deni. He's going to attack the rim. The defense is going to collapse, and he's going to find open teammates. You have to honor Deni when he's on the floor, and that creates easier opportunities for his teammates, which is great. And he gets to the free throw line. And he can shoot the 3. And he pushes the tempo. He does everything you want him to do. And when you don't have him, it's not the same. So that part stinks. And this has been probably the most frustrating part about this year. We're seeing development and growth from this squad. Tiago Splitter's done a heck of a job based on the unfortunate situation he was placed in. But the injuries have just been mind-numbingly bad. Guys in and out of the lineup. You can't really have the continuity. And then in this stretch run where you're really trying to finish off the season strong, you don't have your best player. So whatever. It's dumb. It's dumb. I hate injuries. Sports injuries are just an absolute drag on life. It can ruin a season. It can turn your season upside down. And not only that, but I want to be entertained when I watch sports. That's the whole bottom line. When you don't have your best players on the floor, it's not as entertaining. So that's where I come out on that. But that's where the Blazers are at now, and they will continue to move on. 2 more games on the road trip. They're going to be taking on the Memphis Grizzlies, which is going to be on Wednesday. And after that, they travel to H-Town to take on the Houston Rockets before they come back home for a Sunday game against the Indiana Pacers. So there you have it. That is my take. That's where I'm at. But I thought yesterday's game was just really not a good effort. Defensively, you could tell they were out of sorts. Didn't show a lot of resistance. And the Hawks just rolled them, really. And the offense the last couple of games has not been razor sharp either. So, this happens in the NBA. You go through these lulls, these stretches where it just looks bad on both ends, and you got to work through it. And with Deni Avdija, I don't think it's a serious back issue. I think he's trying to get things sorted out to where he can stay on the floor for an extended period of time. I've had not back injuries, but I've had back issues. I play a lot of golf. I'm very active and with the workouts. And so I have to go through different things each week just to keep my back where I want it to be so I can do all of the different things I want. Especially swinging a golf club, it's tough, but I go through the massage. I get chiropractic adjustments every week. And, it's been, I had to buy a new mattress last year. Getting older and, trying to remain active, it kind of sucks. I had to get the new mattress. I continue to get care from my chiropractor, who's awesome. Get the massage, work out, try and stay strong because I just want to be able to move. That's really what it comes down to. And for Deni Avdija, He's been playing a lot, logging heavy minutes this year, carrying a lot of responsibility. He's a physical player when he's on the floor. So all of these things kind of add up. And maybe for Denny, it's just about finding the right body balance to where he can get himself in a position to where he's going to be fine. But until he's back, you're just going to have these hit and miss nights with the Blazers. That's how important Denny is. It's actually a good thing to come to that realization, to look at the team, watch him play, and realize, like, wow, Denny Avdia is a superstar. They really need him back, and they do. So, rough weekend. Saturday, Sunday, it's like, I'm going to work all 7 days in the week. At least give me a couple of good games. I shouldn't have to sit through that. Neither should you. Very, very rough. From the NFL today, I mentioned in the update, but David Montgomery is on his way to the Texans. And Nick Caserio, their general manager, very aggressive, sent a couple of draft picks out to bring in Montgomery. And I think for Montgomery, he's a little bit longer in the tooth as a running back, but it was a crowded backfield in Detroit. And now he's going to have a chance to go and be showcased. And the Texans last year, if you remember some of their issues, defense was phenomenal, but their offensive line and their run game was a disaster. And as the season went along, we saw the struggles with C.J. Stroud. He regressed significantly last year, and that's a major concern. So how do you get that back on track? You improve the offensive line, and you get more balance in the offense with the run game. Like, I'm a fan of C.J. Stroud. I don't believe he's done. I think it's correctable, but they have got to address the obvious issues. Pass protection, giving him the time he needs to be right so he doesn't suffer another concussion and look like garbage after that, and then have more balance with the run game. The running game is so awesome. I wish that more teams would utilize it. No matter how much the game innovates, and it certainly has, the better you run the football, the better you're going to put your quarterback in a position to have success. Part of the reason why the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, aside from getting home field advantage, was how they were able to have that balance in the offense so that Sam Darnold was in a position where he didn't have to do it all. And in their biggest games, throughout the playoff run, they had balance. And in the Super Bowl, they were able to lean on the run game. And it took some of the pressure off of Sam Darnold. And the same thing goes with C.J. Stroud. And that's what I'm hoping in Denver with Sean Payton. Now handing over the play calling duties to Davis Webb, that Davis Webb will find more balance in the offense to take a little bit of pressure off of Bo Nix. Coming up on the show today, here in about 10 minutes, Casey Holdout, Trailblazers insider and reporter, is going to join us. I think the team stayed in Atlanta an extra night before they're going to take off from Memphis. So we'll talk all things Trailblazers with Casey, and we'll get the latest on Denny Avdia. And at 5:20, Ryan Edwards from 850 KOA in Denver will stop by. He was at the Combine. I want to get his latest thoughts on some of the other issues going on around the NFL. We'll get his take. What was the scuzzlebutt? From what I've been told, the Combine, it's like one of the best places to network and to get information because the guys are all in one area of Indianapolis, and there's a lot of off-the-record conversations that are being tossed around. So it's kind of nice to know what people are thinking, what you're hearing, what are some of the rumors, and then, of course, some of the players that are going to be on the move. And with the new league year now about to be upon us, teams are already starting to reposition and restructure for more salary cap space. So Jawan Taylor, that guy who always starts like 5 seconds before the ball is snapped, it looks like the Chiefs are going to cut him, which would save them like $20 million in cap space. And they're looking at the rest of the roster at other ways where they can save money. It's part of the problem when you start paying your quarterback, you have less money to utilize to beef out your roster. And the Saints expected to clip Marshawn Lattimore. So there you have it. Also tomorrow, Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. I just got to keep reminding you, I do it every Tuesday, courtesy of your Portland Trailblazers and me, where we give away tickets to every home game. So listen to me tomorrow at 5 for your chance to win tickets. I just want to help people. And if I can help you by getting you to a game where you can spend time with friends or family at no charge, I know your life's going to be better because of that. So Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday every Tuesday, and we'll do it tomorrow at 5 o'clock. If you want to reach out to me, 503-248-0620. That is the telephone number. One thing I'm going to get to later in the show, I had a situation arise this weekend with my teenage daughter, who is now 16 years old. And it's the first time where I have had my daughter utilize deception to try and get over on a fairly grave error that she made. I'm going to share the story and break it down for you. It's unbelievable. Got a phone call Saturday. So I'm going to share the story and break it down for you. It's unbelievable. Got a phone call Saturday from her friend's dad, and we started to compare notes, and it was even worse than what we thought. So there you have it. And for those of you, do you have a teenage daughter? Raise your hand. Like, this is the first time. This is the beginning of the nonsense I'm going to have to deal with for the next, 3 years plus. And when you see your kids try to lie and then cover up, you realize how dumb they really are. Like, it was really a poor effort. Almost unbelievable. So I'm going to share that story. 503-248-0620. I was so pissed that I had to wait a couple of days before I lowered the boom. Let's just put it that way. You ever been so irritated at your children where you're like, I think I'm just going to wait a couple of days to cool off before I have the conversation? And then I thought back to my childhood and thought, how did my dad not just kill me? Where he's just like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done trying to convince you to do the right thing. I'm done trying to put up with your nonsense. I'm done trying to cover your backside. I'm done. And you're done. I'm going to read this text to you and be like, what the flip were they thinking? So I'm still blown away by that. And I'm starting to think about it now. I'm getting ticked off again. It's like, just be honest. That's all. I've had the conversation over and over again. If you're just honest with me, it's going to be easier and I can help you. All right, there you go. So 503-248-0620 is the telephone number. Casey Holdaw on the road with the Trailblazers coming up next on the Rip City Drive. Well, the good news for Casey Holdahl, he gets an off day in Atlanta as the Blazers continue their 5-game road trip. The bad news is, like me, he had to sit through 2 horrendous basketball games on Saturday and Sunday against Charlotte and Atlanta. And Casey, I guess we'll start with yesterday. I was just disappointed with the effort coming off the loss to Charlotte, especially on defense, because I thought, at least for me, that might have been their worst defensive performance of the year. Very little resistance as Atlanta got to their spots, got the shots they wanted, and just continued to roll throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, anytime you give up 44 points in the first quarter, I mean, even the most bright side-ish homer opinion of that is like, look, guys, we had to have been better defensively than to allow 44 points in the first quarter. So at a certain point, it reaches a level where there's really not a good explanation for it. And sometimes that almost makes you feel a little bit better, Chad, because at least in that instance, you can kind of tell yourself, well, maybe they were just hitting a lot of shots. I just feel like they got better as the game went on. But you're right. They didn't do what they needed to do in the first quarter, and they dug themselves such a big hole in that first quarter. They really didn't give themselves an opportunity to get back into that game. And that for me is, I think, where it's just the most disappointing is that, when you give up that amount of points in the first quarter, you don't give yourself much of a chance to improve throughout the rest of the game. And so, they never got closer than 15 after that. And then, they pushed it up in the fourth quarter once, the Blazers really decided that, that one was going to go the way it was going to go. So, yeah, it's disappointing, especially after, playing somewhat well versus the Hornets. And they ended up losing that game going away. But, it was a game at least in the fourth quarter. And, you feel like, well, you lose that one, but if you can kind of come back and bounce back versus the Hawks, you feel pretty good about the trip at that point in time. And the Hawks are playing really good basketball. You mentioned it on the pregame show, Chad. You're exactly right. The Blazers are catching some of these teams that are around them in the standings when they're playing some of their best basketball. And you want the Blazers to be playing some of their best basketball right now, too. And so, you'd really just like to have seen a better performance than you saw versus the Hawks. And, we were talking about it, and Thiago had mentioned it, that it was just the All-Star break, so in a lot of respects, you can't chalk it up to being tired. But when you kind of break down what the Blazers have done in the last week, they've been at Phoenix, back home for a day, versus wherever we played before we left on that trip, the Timberwolves, and then Chicago, and then a back-to-back versus the Hornets and the Hawks on the East Coast at one of those games at 10 a.m. Portland start. So you shouldn't have lost any of those games the way that you did. You'd like to have seen a better performance at both of those. But I do think this team is kind of reaching a point where they either need to get guys like Denny back or they need to get a little bit of downtime, or they need to at least put themselves in games so they don't have to try to work overtime in order to at least be competitive like they had to do versus the Hawks. So, they got to do at least one of those things better. And they don't have to do all of it better, but they have to at least make some improvements, either in terms of their starts, in terms of their energy, or in terms of getting some guys back. Because as of right now, it just feels like if anything goes wrong for this team right now, they're going to have a really hard time winning that game.
Yeah, I agree. They're not good enough to just show up and get a win against any opponent. They have to do well in the margins and take care of business. And, when you give up 44 in the first, you give up 30 points off turnovers. That's not good enough to get the job done. But you mentioned Denny, and here's my reverse positive thought on the Blazers right now. Well, they don't have Denny Avdia or Shaedon Sharpe, who are two of their best players. But with Denny, he is a legitimate superstar in my mind, and I've been really trying to promote that over the last couple of months because I think that's how good he really is. So it's not a surprise that the Blazers are struggling without one of the best players in the NBA, because when Denny's on the floor, everyone knows their role, they have direction, and he sets the tone on both ends. When he's not on the floor, you can see it over the last couple of games, there's a little more uncertainty. They don't have the same type of execution, and then they have a bit of a clog up between some of the guys in terms of who's going to be the main facilitator. So I think it's actually a good thing because it shows how critically important Denny is to this team, but how good he truly is.
You're exactly right, Chad, and I feel the same way. And so, the game gets over yesterday. We did the post game, talked to players in the locker room, talked to Thiago post game, and I get on the bus, and I'm sitting there and I'm kind of mad, just the way the game went. I'm man, I'm just kind of pissed off right now.
Yeah, it sucked.
And I'm sitting there and I start to think about it a little bit more, and I'm like, you know what, Casey, it is just two games. It's it's a back-to-back that they should have performed better in it, and I'm not happy they didn't play better than they did. But they're missing their two best players right now, and they're already, struggling as it is. And you're exactly right, Chad. Like, the step that Denny made this season, it's so multifaceted that it really changed the way the Blazers played this season, and they're just having some struggles because now they don't have that go-to guy that they're like, hey, we need a bucket right now. What are we going to do? And before it was like, hey, give it to Denny. He's going to be able to get into the paint. He's either going to be able to get a good look at the rim, he's going to get fouled and get it to the line, or he's going to be able to collapse the defense and then kick it out to somebody, and we're going to get a good look from outside. And now when it's like, what are we going to do to get a bucket? I don't know that they have an answer for that right now. So to lose a guy like Denny, let alone a guy like Shaedon Sharpe, who, again, is another guy where if you need a bucket, you're like, hey, Shaedon, here's the ball. Do what you do. And you can feel pretty confident that you're going to get something out of that. The fact that they don't have either one of those guys right now really makes it so they have to play dang near perfect in order to get good looks. And it's just, that's a hard thing to ask a team to do, particularly on the road, particularly in a back-to-back, particularly in a 10 a.m. Portland start. So, I had to kind of police my own feelings in that regard, Chad, because I just felt myself like getting angrier about it than I felt like I should have been. And, at a certain point, they're going to get Denny back. Thiago had mentioned unprompted after the game last night that Denny is getting close. The team is going to have a practice, as far as I know, in Atlanta tomorrow. So hopefully maybe a chance to get some of those guys back out there, see how they're coming along. And at that point in time, I think you start to just look forward to the next two games of this trip versus Memphis versus the Rockets. But I'm glad you also mentioned too, Chad, that like this team has to play well in order to beat any team right now. And so a Memphis team that is struggling and that is missing guys, you should go into that game and you should win that game. But you're not going to win that game if you don't play well. Yeah. And so I think these last two games are, I don't know they need the reminder, but it's definitely a stark reminder that if we don't play our best, if we don't come engaged and energetic and with a plan, we're going to get run out of the building by any team in the NBA. And so I think that while you would rather they had a better performance versus the Hawks, I would assume that does get them focused for these last two games on this trip. They're going to be incredibly important. And if they can get at least one, if preferably two, then I think you still feel really good about the trip. But you got to get at least one. And again, a guy's talked about wanting to win this trip before they left, and I'm going to take them at their word. Like, I think they honestly want to improve in the standings. If they can give themselves a chance to get a home game in the play-in, I think that would be fantastic. And to do that, they're going to have to win some of these games. And so, I do think that there's things that are fixable. I think that the way that they played versus the Timberwolves, I think they're more of that team than the team that we've seen versus the Hawks and the Hornets. But again, they're going to have to come out and show that in these next couple games, because if we see a whole lot of performances like we saw versus the Hawks, at that point in time, I think you really do start to get nervous about kind of what the last month of the season is going to look for this team going forward.
We're talking to Casey Holdahl, Trailblazers insider and reporter here on the Rip City Drive. The other good news is Donovan Clingan's playing damn good basketball right now. Love him so much.
He's playing great basketball right now. And that's actually another thing, too, that I should have mentioned, Chad. And these are not excuses, but if you're kind of wondering, like, what is going on right now? A lot of guys on the team are sick right now. Like, Donovan had it, and he was sick. Like, I think sometimes people see, like, illness and think, like, what were you doing last night? No, there is some kind of virus going around the team right now, and guys are getting it left and right. Donovan had it, and he looked absolutely miserable. He is just now starting to feel better. Chris Murray, the reason why he played 4 minutes last night is because he's got it. City was able to gut it out, but he did not feel great last night either. And so, I wanted to mention that part because that is something that has been affecting this team. I don't know why, but that illness is out there, and guys are getting it. Donovan has been so good this season. He has been so good in the month of February. I was talking about it with Kevin Calabro today. We were both out. We're doing laundry today because, we had a day off. We're on a long trip. So, you do a load of wash and you make sure the second part of your trip a little less funky. And, yeah, just the way that he's been playing this year and the step that he's taken, I think really changes your timeline for this team. I mean, I think that, after his rookie season where he was kind of a part-time starter and was getting his body right physically, to this season where, he's really started to understand the NBA game, and his fitness is fantastic. He's able to play 33, 35 minutes a night. He's a walking double-double. He's improved his three-point shot considerably. I think when he gets this season under his belt, is able to go into another off season where he's able to continue to address kind of his body and his fitness and really work on maybe some of the more skill portions of his game, I really think that you start considering a more all-star, all-NBA track for Donovan Clingan, if you weren't considering that already, because he has got the athleticism and the skills and the desire too. Like, Donovan wants to be great, and he hates losing more than just about anyone I think I've ever been around in the NBA. And so the way that he's playing right now, the way he's played this season, I think really, again, changes the complexion of what you feel like this team can do going forward. And it's so important to have young players who are still on reasonable contracts to be able to contribute to your team. And Donovan is a guy who is going to be doing that for the next couple seasons. At some point in time, he's going to be up for an extension, but that's still a few seasons away. So the fact that they have a guy who is playing as well as Donovan is playing on a very reasonable contract as a starter who gives you everything you need from a defensive perspective and also has a burgeoning offensive game, I just think that he's really kind of one of the linchpins of this team. And if he's able to continue his improvement and his ascent, then I really think it changes what this team can do going forward, up to and including as soon as next season.
I got to give you some credit. You mentioned this on the briefcase that the Blazers could look to add another two-way player. They have done that. They signed Chris Youngblood to a two-way deal from the Oklahoma City Thunder. What do you know about him?
I know what I've read today, Chad, to be perfectly honest. I did assume that they were probably going to fill that two-way spot, and that's, in the NBA, it's just become very obvious that, those guys on two ways can help you, and they do so at a very reasonable price. And obviously being able to extend out the number of players you have on your roster is incredibly useful, particularly when you're a team like the Blazers that has endured some injury issues this year. So I don't know a whole lot about Chris Youngblood other than that he has played very well for Oklahoma City's G League team. Oklahoma City is a team throughout the league that is viewed as one of the best, if not the best, in terms of finding young talent and then developing that talent in their G League team. So I'm sure that there's part of that as well. I know that he's a young guard, 6'4". I know that, again, he's put up numbers with the Oklahoma City Blue. So I think it's probably another one of those guys that the Blazers feel like, he could probably be on another roster if they had open space, particularly the Thunder, and the fact that they don't opens up an opportunity for the Trailblazers now that they have an open two-way with Sidy Cissoko getting a full NBA contract. So, I would suspect that he will maybe join the team sometime on this trip. I know that, they could definitely use some shooting right now. The three-point shooting for this team, particularly recently, it hasn't been great all season long, but it seems like it's really been seems like it's taken a little bit of a dip the last week or so. So they need guys who can come in and hit some threes. And I'm not entirely sure if that's Chris Youngblood's game because, again, I don't know a ton about his game, but I know that Joe Cronin and his staff have done a very good job of identifying G League talent that they feel like can come in and contribute, as they've done this season multiple times. So I would imagine at this point, I kind of put my faith in Joe and his staff that they know what to look for in terms of G League guys who can come in and maybe deliver some specific skills that the Blazers are deficient in. And I would imagine that Chris Youngblood is one of those guys.
All right, Casey Holdahl is in Atlanta. They're getting ready to take off to Memphis. Next game will be Wednesday at 5, and game day will start at 3 on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Hey, thanks for catching up with me, buddy. Enjoy your time in Atlanta, and hopefully we'll get a better game to watch on Wednesday.
I sure hope so, Chad. I really appreciate it. And, we're out here grinding, but things are going to get better. They're going to play some better basketball here. I feel very confident in that.
Yeah, no question. All right, buddy, I appreciate you. It happens, but they need Denny Avdia. Denny Avdia is awesome. It happens, but they need Denny Avdia. Denny Avdia is awesome. A terrific basketball player who is budding into a superstar. And when you don't have your best player, these type of things happen. But the three-point shooting, the turnovers, the yay, it's like, what are we doing here? Like the sloppiness in which they handle the basketball, it's been a problem all year, but they're not good enough to be able to overcome those type of issues. Sorry, you got to be a little bit better. You got to be tighter in that department. You've got to protect the basketball. And then, look, I don't expect perfection, but you can't just lie down defensively and let a team get whatever they want. Very little resistance from the Trailblazers in that game yesterday, and that's annoying too. But here are the numbers. We talk about winning in the margins. Well, the Trailblazers, 17 turnovers yesterday, which led to 30 points for the Hawks. The Hawks were plus 12 in points off turnovers. So you're minus 12 in points off turnovers. You're on the road, and you allow a team to shoot 55% from the floor, and they connected on nearly 40% of their threes. They were 10 of 19 in the first half from downtown. And once the Hawks extended their lead early in that first quarter, the Blazers did not threaten the rest of the way. I think they pulled it within 16 on a few occasions, but each time they did that, the Hawks were able to get easy buckets. And Okongwu had a monster game. 25 points, 10 boards, 6 assists. So the Blazers right now, defensively not getting the job done and careless with the basketball. And again, Shaedon Sharpe, I think, leads the team in like field goal attempts, so they don't have their, main shot creator. And Denny Abdi, your two best shot creators who can get a bucket aren't on the floor. And the Blazers right now lack identity without especially Denny out there. And once Denny gets back, they'll suddenly kind of fall into place and start playing better basketball. But again, I don't expect perfection, but I need a better effort than what we saw yesterday defensively. And the game against Charlotte was just an NBA basically sticking it to the Blazers type deal because the Charlotte Hornets decided to schedule a Saturday morning game. Well, I guess technically in Charlotte it was a 1 o'clock tip time, but in order to get ready for that game, you're getting up early. And the Blazers are on West Coast time. They're only one game into a 5-game trip, and all of a sudden you're tipping off a game on the East Coast at 1. I just thought that was an unfair advantage. And based on the early part of that game offensively, they didn't hit their first three until like 5 minutes into the second quarter. Well, it's because they were half asleep. So that, you look at the schedule, there's always these little scheduling quirks that you see throughout the course of a season where you're at a disadvantage. Saturday would be a prime example. On Sunday, it was just, they didn't play well at all on either end of the floor. They turned it over on offense, gave up 30 points off turnovers. They allowed the Hawks to shoot, 60+% for the majority of the game. Too many open looks, not enough resistance in the painted area, and the Blazers just never really mounted any type of a threat. They had a 13-10 lead, and then all of a sudden the Hawks go on a 34-12 run. The game's over. I got to say, I love Neil Diamond, and I actually was happy because back in 96, I took my parents to see Neil live in concert at Rose Garden. And the entire show was an epic. And my dad, when I was younger, he had the pickup truck before my brother and I wrecked it out in the countryside of Oklahoma. 8-track player. And then after that, I got his next truck. And then he had a cassette tape that my Uncle Truman had made for him. It was like a live cassette tape of greatest hits for Neil Diamond. And so he and I would listen to that until we basically wore the tape out. He's a stud. And I've got the vinyl of the jazz singer. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. I will get to the story about the chaos with my teenage daughter. I'm just like, I don't even... The shenanigans were so bad that I don't even know what to say. I'm just trying to come up with different ways to discipline her, like a long list. How can you be that dumb? And how can your lies be that bad? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. These are not masterminds. Let's just put it that way. Unbelievable. And I love the preparation, like none at all, getting the phone call from the dad. No heads up, like, hey, you might be getting a phone call from Samina's dad. Thanks. All right, we'll keep things rolling on the Rip City Drive. Big thanks to Casey Holdahl. We'll talk NFL Combine with Ryan Edwards at 5:20. Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday tomorrow at 5. Just listen to me for your chance to win. All right, I'll probably get to the shenanigans coming up at 4 o'clock involving my daughter, which means I have a new rankings of the children with Isaac, Kaylee, and Puppy Shots. I think Kaylee's dead last. It might be down there for quite some time. Telephone number if you want to reach out is 503-248-0620. I did stumble across a Raymond Felton parody song I may have to play for you. I forgot how funny it was. And Raymond Felton, if you remember, the Blazers signed him to a $10 million contract. It was during the lockout year. And he came into town, put on some extra LBs, and then got frustrated and wanted to fight the city because people were making fun of him for being fat. And like I've said with pro athletes, if you are fat and you're paid to be in great shape, it's not fat shaming. Your job is to be in the best possible condition, especially if you're a point guard. I still love him trying to fight the city, though. That was a classic. Needless to say, the Felton era in Portland did not work out so well. Let's go out to Gresham, one of my favorite parts of town. Steve in Gresham wants to talk a little Blazers. Steve, I appreciate the call. You're up on the Rip City Drive. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Chad. This is Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Nice to talk to you.
Yes. How are you?
Seem like you're a good guy.
Thank you.
And I just want to say go Bills, and the Broncos suck. And how do you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you what I think, Larry. I know that you're still frustrated that the Buffalo Bills lost to my Denver Broncos in the postseason. I would be more concerned about your coach hire. Was that the correct hire or not? Will Brady be able to come in and get them to the next level? I don't know. But I'm still hopeful for you as a franchise with Josh Allen at quarterback that at some point you're going to be able to find a way to get over the top and win a championship. Now, in fairness, I tried to warn you before the game in Denver that the Broncos were probably going to win that game. But you couldn't see past the idea of Bo Nix getting over on Josh Allen. And yet they did. The Bills had a difficult year at times with turnovers, at times with their pass protection, and they're still too reliant upon Josh Allen to be Mr. Everything every single game. So I would suggest finding a little more balance in the offense, maybe a little better pass protection up front to make sure he remains healthy throughout the course of the year, and he's going to be fine. He is a super stud at quarterback. Josh Allen is everything you want in a QB. He's the ultimate franchise cornerstone. He is big, he's got a powerful arm, and he's incredibly mobile for a guy of his size. There just haven't been too many guys like Josh Allen. He's that good. He's awesome. Now, you guys are going to be opening up a new stadium. Bills fans are some of the best in the NFL. And when you look around the AFC, the Bills are going to be right there knocking on the door. They should probably bounce back and win the division, which puts them in a position to be a postseason contender. And the key for them is to make sure that they get home field advantage. That's the key. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Trailblazers is going to be back in action coming up on Wednesday. That game's going to tip off at 5, and we'll have Blazers game day at 3 right here in your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. I guess the good news is about this porous last couple of games on the road trip. You know, Portland's pretty much a lock to make the play-in. So that's not going to be a problem. For them, the key right now is just to get healthy, meaning get Denny Avdia back, and then put yourself in a position to where you can be playing some of your best basketball towards the end of the year because they're going to be in the play-in. I guess, like I mentioned before with my dream scenario, the key would be to get up to the 8th spot and play in the 7-8 playing game, so you only need one win to get into the postseason. But this team is not going to tank. They're not going to take their foot off the gas. They're not going to shut it down. They're going to try and make the postseason. And I'm perfectly okay with that. I want that to happen. So right now in the standings, I'll go over this again just so you know how it works. Portland right now has dropped to 10th. They're a half game behind the Clippers, who are 9th. And they are 3 games back of Golden State, who currently sits in 8th. So overcoming the 3-game deficit to Golden State's not impossible, especially since they have the tie break with the Warriors. And it will give them a chance to potentially get into that 8th spot. But they've got to play better basketball. So if you're in the 7-8 spot, this is how it works for the play-in. The 7 and 8 seed will play each other in a game. 7 seed will host the 8 seed. And the winner of that game moves on and will become the 7th seed in the Western Conference playoffs. Now, in the other game, the 9-10 matchup, those two teams will play. The winner moves on and plays the loser of the 7-8 game, and whoever wins that game and emerges will become the 8th seed in the Western Conference playoffs. So as you can see, the advantage of getting up to the 8th spot would mean the Blazers only need one win to get into the postseason. But before they can worry about any of that, they need to get Denny Avdia back and really try to regroup and refocus. Making sure that they understand their assignments on defense, that the new combination of guys, now that they've got players who are healthy and once again playing, that these guys can get some continuity with each other, communicate better, and understand their role defensively so they can be better on that end. And then once Denny Avdia returns, that will settle everything on offense because he'll handle the rock the majority of the time. And with his ability to get to the free throw line and bring the defense to him when he's on the attack, it will create open looks for his teammates. And those guys like Holiday, Grant, Krejci, you name it, they're all going to get better shots because Avdia is on the floor. And the good news is, regardless of how this plays out the rest of the way, we should just be happy that the Blazers have discovered their franchise player. It's Denny Avdia. And the Blazers have 20 games to go. So can sometime between now and the next 20 games, can they get Avdia back and then settle into a place where they're playing some of their best basketball? I would think so, assuming Avdia comes back quickly and is able to remain on the floor with the team being remarkably healthy compared to what they were a month and a half to 2 months ago. Yeah, they'll have a chance to play their best basketball. In any event, the experience for the young guys is going to be good because they're going to be playing in more meaningful games. And once they get into the play-in, they'll have a taste of what postseason type basketball looks like. That's really what we're talking about. So that's where we're at. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Ryan Edwards talking NFL Combine coming up at 5:20. We'll also find out what the details are behind Sean Payton deciding to give up play calling and turn it over to Davis Webb. Interesting because Payton's been one of the best play callers in the NFL for quite some time. All right, 503-248-0620. I appreciate your time. Hope you're enjoying your Monday. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. right, rough weekend for the Trailblazers. They drop back-to-back games Saturday and Sunday in Charlotte and Atlanta. Hawks get the win yesterday by 34. The Blazers give up 30 points off of turnovers. Portland now 29 and 33. 2 days off before they continue their 5-game road trip in Memphis on Wednesday. Tip-off at 5. Blazers game days at 3 here in your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Trailblazers Ticket Tuesday tomorrow. Your chance to win tickets. Just listen to me at 5. From the NFL, Saints expected to cut Marshawn Lattimore for cap savings. Chiefs are going to do the same with left tackle Jawan Taylor, a move that could save them $20 million. And the Texans have sent 2 picks to the Lions in exchange for running back David Montgomery. Coming up at 5:20, we'll head to Denver and talk with Ryan Edwards, 850 KOA, and focus in on the Combine, which he was at covering last week. All right, so I had my first taste of teenage deception this weekend. So I'll walk you through how everything went down. I guess we'll start with this. One of my daughter's best friends lives up in Ridgefield. I live in Salmon Creek, so the house in which her best friend lives is not too far away. And it's a really nice house. It's beautiful. And, of course, Ridgefield now is a booming area. In-N-Out is up there. They've got a Costco. They've got everything. It's totally different than what it was when I was young myself, a teenager. It was like farmland, cows, horses. And now it's an excellent spot. So that's where one of my daughter's best friends lives, Samina. Well, I get a call on Friday night. So I was down at Spirit Mountain Casino. I did my show from down there, and then I hosted a drawing. And I was working until pretty late. I get a phone call from my daughter, and she's like, "Hey, Dad, what time are you going to be home?" And I said, "Well, I'm working until pretty late, so I'm not going to be home until, past midnight. I'll probably be down here until, 11:30 or 12. And she said, "Well, do you mind picking me and Samina up in Camas at around 1:30 when you come back?" And I'm like, "No, why would I do that? And why would you think it's okay to be out until 1:30 in the morning?" And I'm not certain because I haven't spoken with him, but I'm guessing that Samina's father's not going to be cool with that either. And she goes, "Oh, I understand. It's okay." So I got off the phone and continued about my business. She had gone to a basketball game in Camas, and that's where she went, was the basketball game. Now, her mom picked her and her friend up and drove them back to Ridgefield. I think they got something to eat and dropped them off around 11 o'clock at night. So that's where Mom left the 2 girls, was at her friend's house in Ridgefield. Well, on Saturday, I get a phone call from a gentleman named Mo, who is Samina's father. And he starts asking me questions about what the girls were doing, what he discovered in the morning, and started to lay everything out. And then he sent me a text message that blew my mind. So, and this all started to piece together in my mind based on what he knew and what he was telling me. And then I was comparing notes based on what I had gathered and what I knew about conversations I'd had before Saturday. So he told me that when he got up on Saturday morning, that something felt off. And tell me if you're a dad out there that you have those moments where you're like, wait a second, something doesn't seem right. It's too quiet. There's something that just feels off. You kind of get that internal instinct that something's, maybe sideways. And so you go and start investigating. So apparently when my daughter stays the night at her friend's house, they normally stay in like one of the guest bedrooms. And when he went to the guest bedroom, it was locked, the door to get in. And he knocked on the door and there was no response. And so he went and got a key to open up the door into the guest bedroom. Well, what do you think he found when he opened up the door into the guest bedroom? Exactly nobody. And this is in the morning time, probably around 7:30, 8 o'clock, somewhere in that area. Well, no one was there, and he said the window was wide open. So the window to the guest bedroom was open and just wide open to where anyone could enter the house if they decided to do so. So that's when he started making phone calls to his daughter to find out what the heck was going on. So the person that picked up the girls when they snuck out drove them back to my place, and then my daughter's friend's mother picked them up. And that's where they started to go through a series of unfortunate lies to try and cover their tracks. And they said that they had left the house at 7:30 in the morning to go and have coffee at some coffee shop in town. I think it was a Dutch Bros, one that supposedly or maybe or possibly might be open 24 hours. And it was, in fact, a teenage boy, who picked up the girls from Ridgefield to drive them back to the other side of town. Now, this made sense to me because my daughter had called me on Friday night asking if I could pick them up at 1 or 1:30 on my way back into town in Camas. So right away, I knew that Dutch Brothers probably wasn't the destination spot, but they were going to Camas to this boy's house or wherever the destination spot was. And that's when Samina's father was like, well, I need your dad's phone number. He was talking to my daughter, and he wanted my number so he could contact me. And I think that's when the girls knew they were going to get into bigger trouble. So they put together a text message and sent a text message to the dad pretending to be me. And they used one of those burner apps that, where you can send messages to people from like erroneous phone numbers. And Mo was like, here, I'll send you this text message. You take a look at it, because I read it and I knew right away that it was nonsense and it didn't make any sense. And he goes, that's when I realized that they were flat out lying to me. And I thought that was, basically amazing. So here's what the message said. Now, keep in mind, for those of you who don't know, my brother passed away last month in December. So here's the message that was sent to the dad as they tried to cover their tracks. Hello, Mo. I heard about your concerns from last night, and I would like to explain the situation. Last night, Kaylee's uncle, my brother, passed away from cancer. Kaylee's brother picked her up to help her handle this information. I wasn't aware that she hadn't told you of the situation, so I apologize for that. I read that, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So they lied about what time they left. And then to cover their tracks, they sent a text message from an erroneous phone number to try and pretend to be me so that the dad and me would not have a conversation to be able to figure out what's going on. And the crazy part about all of this is that, as I've had, and I've told you this before, I've had many conversations with my daughter. And keep in mind, I was once a teenager like all of you were. I did things that were wrong. So I've told my daughter time and time again, I don't expect you to be perfect. I know that you're going to make bad decisions at times. I'm not encouraging you to do that, but I know it's going to happen. I don't expect perfection. What I need from you is to be honest and always deal with me straight so that I can help you resolve whatever issues you've gotten yourself into. But you have to be honest. And if you are, your punishment will always be less, and I'm going to help you the best that I can. But most importantly, we'll maintain a certain level of respect and trust within this father-daughter relationship. And I've had this conversation over and over again. You don't have to be perfect. If you get yourself in a bind, you can reach out to me and I will help you, but I need you to be honest. And she and her friend did the exact opposite of that. So now I'm in that situation where no matter what I'm being told, I have to wonder, like, is this the truth or are you making up nonsense again? And now I'm trying to come up with the different lines of punishment to send the message. So there you go. That's how the weekend played out. I have not yet had the sit-down, full-length discussion with Kayla yet. I will do that, but I wanted a couple of days just to, I've learned from my dad that it's better to kind of wait and let things simmer, before you start making decisions. So I can be less irritated and just be able to deal with things straight. And the crazy part is, like, I snuck out all the time when I was younger. But I'm also a boy. I think it's a little bit different. We would sneak out, and my buddy Jeff lived right down at the bottom of the hill below my house. So we would sneak out, and usually it was me and him and a couple other boys. We'd meet up in the neighborhood. We would play that game, where you would, I forgot the name of it, but you go up and you hit someone's doorbell and you take off running. We would play, ring and run. So we'd play that game. We'd, horse around or whatever. But no one was picking us up and driving us across town to Camas. And like he pointed out, too, the scary part is, so you're at somebody's house. We think that's where you're at. Someone picks you up, you sneak out, and you drive to a different part of town. So if something does happen, no one knows where you're at, no one knows who you're with, and no one would be able to help if something went sideways. None of it. Like, literally none of it. And I've always been resistant to having, what are those different apps, the locators, like Live 360, and I'm not an Apple user, but I know with my daughter's phone, you can pull up her location. I've never wanted to have the monitoring system I don't want that kind of information at my fingertips because I don't want to be like always looking and worried about that kind of stuff. But now I'm thinking it might be good to have that just so I can pay attention, to the whereabouts. So you don't have them pull one over on you where they're like, yeah, I'm staying here. And then you wind up in a different person's house. Because you're trying to deceive your parents. So I don't know. Good gracious. But that's that first time where I'm talking to another dad and I'm like ashamed because of the deception that took place there. So there you have it. There you have it. And chaos. And of course, Mo is like, who's this boy? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, I'd like to talk to him or his parents. I don't know why he thinks it's okay to drive across town and pick up my daughter in the middle of the night and drive them back to Camas. I'm like, yeah, I feel the same way. So have you been through this before? Raise your hand if you've dealt with this type of nonsense. And the crazy part is, like, and it's my biggest struggle as a parent, and I don't know if you all feel the same or not, but most of the time, like, I never have felt like I ever have quite the handle on being a father. Like, not really sure what's going on. How to handle every situation, how to communicate this, how to do that, or whatever. Like, I've never really felt like I got a handle on that. Maybe some parents do. Like, there's certain parents I admire because I'm like, they appear to be on top of that and how to deal with certain situations. But, man, there's no blue book for it. And my dad was right. He told me when I was younger, he goes, I just assumed that basically from the age of like 12 or 13 up until about nonsense. And I asked my dad, I was mentioning some of the nonsense that went down. I said, isn't it different when a girl sneaks out and is driven across town by some boy? Isn't that a little bit different than boys sneaking out and hanging out in the neighborhood? He goes, yes, of course. He goes, it just is. Your grandpa, very worried about these type of activities too, because, especially with the loss of my brother, grandpa's very concerned about everyone's well-being now. All right, so there you go. The reason why I'm sharing this is because my life is like a lot of yours, chaotic and crazy, and I'm sure a lot of us are dealing with the same nonsense. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Hope you're enjoying your Monday. Ryan Edwards talking Combine coming up at 5:20. By the way, the weather outside is sweet today, 63 degrees and sunny when I came in. I love it. I like it a lot. Looking forward to talking football with Ryan Edwards as well. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, Portland State is hosting Weber State tonight. I think I'm going to head down, 7 o'clock tip at the Pavilion. If they win, I think they will clinch the regular season Big Sky, which is pretty sweet. Very good season for the Vikes. All right, let's go out to the phones. Let's go to Gresham. Chuck in Gresham wants to chime in on my teenage daughter situation with the shenanigans I just explained. Let's go out there right now. Chuck, I appreciate the phone call. You're up on the Rip City Drive. Let's start with this question. Do you have any daughters? How many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids, both grown up.
Okay. Sons or daughters?
My daughter was the younger one,
Okay.
and I have a son.
Okay.
But I was listening to you on the radio, and it's like, all right, and I listen to you every day. Chad, I love you guys.
Well, thank you.
But I feel for what you're going through. First thing I would do as a father, and I'm 60 years old, so I grew up under the strong arm, the hand, if you know what I mean.
Uh-huh. I did too.
I grew up in Malala, Oregon. If I got in trouble, my parents knew it before I got home. Population of 4,000, everybody knows everybody, right?
Yep.
All right. I would ask the young man to come over to your home and meet him.
You know, it's funny you
And then
mentioned
I
that.
would
I'm going to do that. That was a decision I made. I'm going to get his phone number and ask him to come over so I can have a conversation with him.
Well, I would also get his address and go over and have a conversation with the parents. You know, mellow. Don't be upset or anything.
Oh, no.
I went through with my daughter.
Yeah. Well, what I was thinking, you know, Chuck, I was thinking about going over. From what I was told, I think the boy, I think he lives. It's just him and his mom who live together. So all I wanted to do was just have a conversation with the mom to let her know what had taken place, and I wasn't going to do so in anger or anything. I just wanted her to be aware because my guess is she probably doesn't know.
I almost guarantee she doesn't know.
Yeah, there's almost certainty.
And the dad's always the last one to find out from the daughter. But yeah, I would have that conversation with the boy. So if you want to see my daughter, you make a phone call. You make a presentation, then you pick up my daughter. And if you don't like him, hey, fine, get rid of him.
There you go. Yeah, I think that conversation needs to be had. So how much shenanigans did you have to put up with when your daughter was a teenager?
A lot. I found out because I got a phone call at the house. We actually had a landline back then, and it was from the doctor's office, and they wanted to talk to my daughter. And I said, well, I'm her dad. What's this about? Well, her prescription for a morning after pill is ready.
Oh, my God.
You think your problem's bad?
That's not
You don't
exactly
wanna
the
have
phone
that
call you want to have. Yeah, you were probably shocked to get that phone call.
Yeah. So was the boy after I saw him next time. Yeah.
Jeez.
But Chad, good luck to you, man. I love listening to you.
All right, Chuck, that's a terrific call. I appreciate your time. All right, so
Yeah, don't stress, Chad. You won't get that call because you don't need a prescription in Washington for the morning after pill.
oh, that's nice. Yeah, no parental consent, no nothing, right? But Shaq and I were joking about this. This is what drives me crazy, right? I'm just going to be honest with you. And I think most of you guys out there can be honest with, let's just have a conversation amongst us men for just a moment, okay? I can only speak for myself. I'm not going to lump every guy into this category. I will speak for me and assume that there are other guys that were the same way I was at a teenage level. My motivations for when I hang out with girls, it was for one thing. And it wasn't to play hoop. Let's just put it that way. That's it. There was one reason. And I would do whatever it took in hopes that that one reason might come true. That's the only motivation. That's it. Why do you think I'd go over and hang out in a room with a bunch of New Kids on the Block posters everywhere? Because I was hoping that my diligence would pay off for one thing. So there you go. Now, again, maybe that's just me, right? Maybe it's just me. But my guess would be no, based on the friends I had and the conversations that we had. So there you go. That's what I'm dealing with. And based on the conversation with Chuck, to summarize that, I'm screwed. I am literally screwed. He gets a phone call, and much to his surprise, it's the doctor's office that the morning after pill prescription for his daughter's available now. She can pick it up. Thanks. Thanks for the heads up. I appreciate that. I'll let her know. Like, that's not a phone call you want as a dad right there. Just like I didn't want the phone call from some dad telling me that, he opened up the guest bedroom and the window was wide open. Like, there's so many things wrong about the whole scene and everything that went down. Number one, they left in the middle of the night with a boy that nobody knows to head to the other side of town. That's problem number one. Problem number two, they leave the window wide open on Mo's house. So he doesn't know it's open. Anyone could enter the house if they so choose, and that puts them at risk. And no parent or anyone involved with the kids knows where they're at or who they're with. So if something happens, there would be no way to help out. Even Grandpa, even my dad was like, "Whoa, no, Dad, but what about the child trafficking?" Like, he just starts adding in all these things that my mind hadn't even, crossed over into yet. Dad, I understand. Thank you, Dad. I don't want to think about that stuff right now. I have a good idea. Become a parent, because it's a lot of fun. It's a wild ride. And children are wonderful, right? Oh, my gosh. And that's the other thing, too. Parents, they talk about kids like somehow it's a wonderful experience. Well, in my experience, it's not wonderful. Babies are overrated. That's a big lie from parents and from grandparents that somehow babies are wonderful. They're not. Unless you like having your sleep completely disrupted and having something that does nothing but take from you for like 2 or 3 years in a row. That was a good experience. And if you're a dad, you have nothing to offer. A lot of fun there. And now you raise them and spend lots of dollars to care for them and show them love, and then they deceive you. That's a good time too. But you should be a parent. And I'm saying that, of course, a lot of that with, a little bit of sarcasm. But yeah, it's craziness. So anywho, there you go. I'm going to have to deal with that and have to have that conversation. And she's been avoiding me too. It's one thing I've noticed the last couple of days. Like, she's been in her room and going to bed real early the last couple of nights. And I know from conversations she's had with Mom that she's like, how mad is Dad? Is he like really mad? How would you describe his anger? Like, she's trying to gauge the situation. So there you have it. That's what's going on. And I'm not sure if Chuck's phone call helped me or hurt me. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like, more of this nonsense is coming. So I need your help to prepare. What should I do? How did you handle this? Should I go full on monitoring with like the technology? What do you dads do? How do you deal with this?
What's the point of that if she ditches her phone somewhere? Like at the library. Like, I was at the library the last 3 hours.
Ditch the phone at the library. See? You can see I was there the whole time. And you're not helping either, Michael, because you're asking me a lot of questions too. Oh, Chad, I got one question. Were drugs involved? I hadn't even thought about that. No, I don't think so. But how would I know? I'm not being, they're not dealing straight with me.
I'm being realistic.
All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. 503-248-0620. All right, appreciate your time. Hope you're enjoying your Monday out there. I mean, the only thing I could really think about today is like we are getting close to golf weather. And I'm starting to Jones now. 20 games left in the Blazer season. 63 degrees outside. Feeling good. And that means golf season's right around the corner. What is it, March now? Yeah, it's the beginning of March. So we're going to set the clocks ahead on Sunday. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I do like it because I like longer days. I love the summertime long days where the sun goes down late and it comes up early, which means more golfing time. And so I'm excited because I got a lesson coming up tomorrow. I've been doing my indoor practice. I just can't wait to get on the course and start playing and playing and playing. So that's what I'm excited about today. But the weather is good. It's really nice. I think on Saturday, there's a non-Blazer game that day on Saturday. I've been invited up by someone who's helped put on the tournament, but I think I'm going to go check out some of the Washington high school basketball tournament up at Tacoma Dome. Have you ever been up there? It's pretty sweet because Tacoma Dome, they drop a gigantic curtain, like this giant shroud that drops down, and they separate, and they got games going on both sides. So it's a really good setup. And I can't wait to get up there and check out some of the basketball. And then next week here on Rip City Radio 620, we're going to have a bunch of the boys and girls game that will run on the station starting on Wednesday all the way through Saturday with the championship games. So high school basketball tournament's coming. And then, March Madness is right around the corner too. So we're going to get a chance to check out some of the tournament action. And I like the tournament games. I like getting a chance to watch some of the basketball. And it's kind of a good way to kind of, bridge or get that bridge coming out of football season. But that's what's going on. So we'll have a bunch of those games starting on Wednesday next week here on Rip City Radio 620, your home of the OSAA. But I'm not joking. If you have input, stories, or different things that you did to help monitor your situation with your teenage daughters, let me know. You can reach out to me on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. Telephone number 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Now, in regards to the Trailblazers, I'm going to say this again. The team is not tanking. They're not tanking. They're not trying to tank. They're focused on winning as many games as possible right now for this stretch run. They are 4.5 games clear of Memphis. So Portland is going to be in the play-in. The question is, which seed are they going to be? Will it be 8, 9, or 10? And that's really what it comes down to. So they're trying to win. They want to get experience for the young core. And the good news is if they don't make the playoffs and lose in the play-in, they get to keep their lottery pick, and it will not convey to Chicago. If they make the playoffs, then we get to experience, some first-round action, good experience for the young core to be able to play in those high-leverage games. And in that case, you would kick the pick over to Chicago, but you get a chance to get that experience for your young guys. And so I think that's a good thing for the team as well. Now, the exciting part about this upcoming, rest of the stretch run into the offseason is we're going to have a chance to hear from the new owner, Tom Dundon. He's going to be confirmed in the very near future. I also expect the NBA to vote and approve the expansion teams of Las Vegas and Seattle. But it's going to be fun to hear from Dundon, to hear about his plans and what he's looking forward to doing and how aggressive he's going to be. So I think there's a lot of things to be excited about. I'm also excited.
In Seattle right now because the Carolina Hurricanes play tonight against the Kraken.
You think Dundon's going to be up there?
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, one of the teams he owns is playing, and one of the teams he's soon going to be owned is down here. You can cut a lot of deals.
Yeah, and I am excited. I've mentioned this before, but from what I'm hearing with some of the ideas that they have to revitalize, the Rose Quarter area, I think there's some smart people that have some grandiose ideas to be able to get things done. And the cool part about that is it's not just about getting the arena improvements, but making that a destination spot, cleaning it up, putting something there that people will have reason to visit, and then that whole area around Moda Center becomes something different. And so that part's pretty exciting. And from everyone we've talked to, there appears to be the proper support with the county, the city, and the state. And I would encourage you to go to newmodacenter.com. You can go there, and there's a easy link that you can find on the top of the page at newmodacenter.com where you can send and communicate your support to your local leaders. And I think that's important. Let them know that you want the improvements to be done, that you support it, and that you want the Blazers to be here long term. So that's the best way, because I've had people ask me, like, what can I do? How can I voice? Go to newmodacenter.com, and you can easily voice your opinions and your support. And then that will get in front of your local leaders to make sure that they understand the importance of what they're trying to get done. Not just to have basketball here, but to get that arena, upgraded so we can continue to have a number of terrific events. And then the cool part is we'll have that project to look forward to, and we got the new ballpark opening up out in Hillsborough too, where they're going to have more than just baseball. They're going to have other, different events there as well, including concerts. And I want, like we have had for years, I want the biggest and best acts to come through town in Portland because I love going to live shows, live music. So there you have it. Go to newmodacenter.com and check it out. And just voice your support. That's the best thing you can do. Let the local leaders know how you feel about the project. And I think they understand the importance, too, of the Trailblazers to the community. What it means to everyone here, what it means to have professional sports in your town, having a building that is, renovated and special to have a bunch of different events. But basketball, pro sports, it brings the community together. And we need more things like that now, more so than ever, to have things that bring us together. And so that's where we're at with that. So a lot of things to look forward to. But I'm just anxious to hear from the new owner about his vision, what he's looking to accomplish. If we take anything away from his ownership of the NHL team, is that he's aggressive and wants to win. And he's put a successful product on the ice. So based on what we know so far, he's going to do whatever it takes to win. Which, again, what are my two basic, needs when it comes to ownership? Do you want to win? And if that is the case, are you willing to utilize all of your resources to make that happen? And if you are, those two things are true, and you do whatever it takes to win, and you want to win badly, then I can live with the mistakes because you're not going to bat 1,000. No owner bats 1,000. No GM bats 1,000. Nobody. But if your desire is real and you do everything you can to make it happen, then that's cool. That's all I'm looking for. And that's what I think they're going to get from Tom Dundon, but I just can't wait to hear from him, for the first time. And we'll see. And, of course, I always wonder, too, with owners, he's got experience now in the NHL. What's the plan coming in? Do you sit back for a period of time to observe and to learn a new sport and how business is done in the NBA? Has he already done that, and he's kind of got a plan for how he wants to attack right from the get-go? What's the approach going to be? I don't know the answer to that. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. We'll talk NFL Combine coming up at 5:20. And I hope you're enjoying your Monday out there. The weather is spectacular. Really good. Blazers back in action Wednesday. Tip-off in Memphis at 5. Blazers game day will start at 3 right here in your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. This is crazy. I'm reading this headline right now. Chad Baker-Mazara was dismissed from USC men's basketball team yesterday after an internal investigation determined he falsified his birth certificate. An anonymous tip reportedly suggested that the Dominican native is actually 32 years old and a father of 4. You got to be kidding me. Unbelievable. And, of course, it's not. It's a fake story that was put out on social media. This is what I'm talking about. Social media is becoming so worthless because of all the nonsense that's put out there now.
You didn't have 8 redshirt years?
Be better, people. Be better. Well, if you're wondering why it's important to capitalize on your NFL squad when your QB is on a rookie deal, the Kansas City Chiefs are experiencing the challenges of paying a couple of guys huge money in Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs have informed right tackle Jawan Taylor that he's going to be released before the start of the league year. This move will save the Chiefs around $20 million against the salary cap and will allow them to be under the cap when the league year starts on March 11th. And according to the report, it marks the latest cap-turning move by the Chiefs, who also released veteran defensive end Mike Dana and restructured Mahomes' contract last month. The Chiefs could also create more cap space by releasing linebacker Drew Tranquill and tight end Noah Gray, but also restructuring the contracts of Chris Jones and Creed Humphrey. The Chiefs entered the offseason more than $57 million over the cap. Taylor is 28. He had 1 year remaining on a 4-year, $80 million deal. He joined the team back in 23 as a free agent and helped them win the Super Bowl. But Taylor has had issues with penalties. Not surprising if you watch him play. 49, 41 accepted in 45 games with the Chiefs, the most of any lineman during that span. Jalen Moore, a 5-year vet who signed a 2-year contract worth $30 million, is expected to be the right tackle for the upcoming season. So again, this kind of plays into the whole idea that you have to, you've got to take advantage of the opportunities when your quarterback is on a cheap deal. Because once you pay the QB, trying to keep the rest of your roster together becomes very difficult. And the Chiefs are experiencing that right now. Fortunately for them, they have a top 10 pick coming up or will be aggressive and go after the Notre Dame running back and go after the bells and whistles, or will they go after the Notre Dame running back and go after the bells and whistles, or will they be more prudent and focus on, one of either the offensive or defensive lines, because they could use a pass rusher. I just don't think you can afford to take a running back in the top 10 if you're the Chiefs, because they need help elsewhere at more important positions. And, of course, with your offensive skill positions, when you're playing with Patrick Mahomes, he can help guys be able to play above their capabilities. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can reach out to me. We're going to talk NFL Combine with Ryan Edwards at 5:20. We'll get some of the latest scuzzlebutt of what's going on around the league. We'll get his take on Sean Payton handing over the play-calling duties to Davis Webb. Get his thoughts on, what he heard at the Combine and some of the players that stood out. What he thinks about this combination with Clint Kubiak and the Raiders and Fernando Mendoza, who almost certainly will go number 1 to Las Vegas. And I'm anxious to watch him play. I like this competitive nature at Indiana, his toughness that he showed throughout the playoff run. But most importantly, I like his ball placement on time and with accuracy, which is the most important trait you can have as a quarterback, regardless of arm strength or anything of that nature. He's not the most mobile guy, but he's not an iron deer back there in the pocket either. So, we'll see. But you would think that would look like that might be a pretty good marriage. Young coach with his first head coaching opportunity, getting a chance to, who's an offensive mind in Clint Kubiak, getting a chance to find a young quarterback, and he can groom him the way that he wants. And with that offense, if you are able to use the zone scheme and run the football well and have balance, and you've got a quarterback who can run the plays on schedule and deliver the football accurately, it could be a situation where Mendoza is able to thrive. But, of course, Clint Kubiak is going to have to overcome decades of inept leadership at the top for the Raiders. Is he good enough to do that? Will he be able to get through that? I don't know. Mike Shanahan's first head coaching job was with the Raiders, and it lasted just over a year before he was fired by Al Davis. And Shanahan, of course, is one of the all-time greats. So I don't know. The Raiders for most of my life have been a disaster. And like I said, I've mentioned this before. I actually like Mark Davis. I don't think he makes the best decisions, as we've seen with his head coaching spot. But he did do something his dad couldn't do and got a brand new stadium built in Las Vegas, which is impressive. And it's been difficult for him because everyone was friends with his dad, the Raider family. They all respected his dad. But when Mark took over, those same people that were loyal to his dad didn't treat him so well. It's kind of like the black sheep of the family. But yet he was the one who rose to power. And, so it's been difficult for him. But he is kind of an everyday guy. He would hang out right below where I lived in the Bay Area. He would go to P.F. Chang's in Emeryville all the time. That was Mark Davis's hangout, which seems kind of fitting. You would think an NFL owner who's got, a little bit of cash might hang out somewhere different than P.F. Chang's, but that was his spot. He liked to get his grub at P.F. Chang's. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. We've got the NBC reunion broadcast coming up, which is going to include Bob Costas. Not Peter Vesey, though, unfortunately. And I wish that NBC had the wherewithal to be able to include Vesey into that because he was such a big part of the NBC coverage. But Vesey, the first journalist to be a sports-specific guy with the NBA, and the best NBA writer I've ever come across, and he was terrific on TV as well. And a legitimate insider who got his information from all the different relationships that he created around the league over the course of time. But it's changed, back then, and I've talked to some of the old timers about this, before they started putting all the guardrails and the gatekeepers, reporters would spend time in the locker room. They'd hang out with the players. They would talk to them. They'd have conversations off record. They would get their information that way, and there was a legitimate relationship. And if they wrote a story where they were critical, they'd always show up and give the player a chance to talk to him about it if they didn't like it. But now you just don't have the same type of access these days. And so it's harder for the writers, the reporters, the insiders to be able to develop those relationships to where they can get that type of information. But Peter Vesey was the best. And he's in the NBA Hall of Fame or the Basketball Hall of Fame. He's a Kurt Gowdy Award recipient, which is awesome. So love that. But it's going to be fun because those are the days I grew up on. So I think it's going to be Doug Collins, Bob Costas. I think Hannah Storm's going to be involved. NBC's done a pretty good job thus far with, marrying some of the old with the new. And, I grew up, Dick Stockton and Tommy Heinsohn were the first guys I grew up with who were on CBS, main broadcast team. And then after that, the NBC took over the NBA broadcast team. And then after that, the NBC took over the NBA. And we had Marv Albert and Mike Fratello, who I would say is probably my favorite. Or as Marv would call Mike, the czar of the telestrator. I think Fratello might be doing Clipper games now on TV. So, pretty sweet. All right, we'll keep things rolling. I appreciate your time. Rough weekend for the Trailblazers. I'll get to that. And then we'll talk Combine 520. Ryan Edwards is going to stop by the show.
America's game. It's fantastic.
All right, rough weekend for the Blazers. Dropped back-to-back games Saturday and Sunday in Charlotte and Atlanta. Yesterday, gave up 30 points off turnovers and lose by 34 to the Hawks. They continue their 5-game road trip coming up on Wednesday. They'll be in Memphis. That tip-off is at 5, Blazer game day at 3, right here in your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. And as a reminder, listen to me tomorrow for your chance to win tickets to an upcoming Trailblazers game with Trailblazers Ticket Tuesday. We do it each and every Tuesday, right here in your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Chiefs expected to release left tackle Jawan Taylor, a move that could save them $20 million under the cap. The Texans have sent 2 picks to the Lions in exchange for running back David Montgomery. And the Commanders are expected to cut Marshawn Lattimore for cap savings. Ryan Edwards talking Combine from 850 KOA in Denver coming up at 520. All right, Michael Shacker is now intentionally trying to make this music themed to the issues I'm experiencing with my daughter right now after her shenanigans over the weekend. She snuck out with a friend in Ridgefield in the middle of the night, locked the door to the guest bedroom where she was, quote, staying the night. And when the dad got in, found the window wide open. And they had escaped out to the other side of town somewhere in Camas, picked up by a teenage boy who I don't know. So there you have it. And then when they got caught, the lies and the deception went to levels that are not safe. So I've got to deal with that situation. And Shacker's now informing me of all the different things I should be concerned about. So we have that. Trailblazers with a horrendous weekend. A loss on Saturday morning in Charlotte where they couldn't make a shot. And then yesterday in Atlanta losing by 34 where they couldn't protect the basketball and they couldn't get a stop defensively. So I thought about this with the Blazers, and this is actually something I think is a good thing. You know, they're struggling right now, but who's not in the lineup? Well, we know Shaden Sharp's out, and that's a problem because he's one of their great shot creators. And he's also, I think, leads the team in field goal attempts. But it's also Denny Avdia. And I have been really big on Denny this year, and I've been trying to get this point across that he's not just a good player, he's a budding superstar in the NBA. And he just made the All-Star game. He's been terrific. And from the people I've talked about, you know, inside the organization about Denny's development, they keep pointing out and reminding me that this process from becoming the primary facilitator where he's running everything, this is not some type of simple transition. There's a lot of complexity to what he's doing and what the different things he needs to know and what he needs to run. But he's handled it really well. And there's a certain physicality to his game. He's very good defensively. He pushes the tempo better than anyone else. But when he's on the floor making decisions, drawing the defense to him, he can create easier buckets for his teammates. He's great at getting to the foul line. He just makes everything go. And guys, when they're on the floor with Denny, he makes it easier for them. They don't have to think as much. They can just react to him and get to their spots and have opportunities to score, which is great. Denny Avdia is everything. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of the issues that you're seeing now. The team without Denny doesn't really have an identity. And they struggle with who's going to be the main facilitator, how they want to run the offense, who's going to push the tempo. Denny settles all that down. So I guess in a good way, this is a prime example right now of why they need Denny so much, because he means so much to everything they do. And I think that's something to celebrate, the fact that they have located their superstar player. I think it was after last year. It was at the, those interviews that they do at the end of the year, the exit interviews. So Chauncey Billups and Joe Cronin were talking about, the roster. And they were asked about a superstar player, a go-to guy. And they said, we're always looking for that, but it's possible that that player might be on this team right now, and through the process of internal development, we're going to discover that. But it's Denny. And for the first year, everyone was like, well, what is Denny? Is he a 2? Is he really a number 1? Is he a 2 on a championship team? I think we know what he is. He's a legit 1. And he's incredibly vital to the Trailblazers. Now, Shaedon Sharpe also critical because of his shot creation. He's the one guy on the roster that can have the ball late in the shot clock and be able to create a shot for himself because of his, skill set, but his athleticism. He can rise up above the defense. He's also very good in transition, most athletic player on the roster. But Denny's the one that makes it go. So at least we know that the Blazers need Denny because he is super legit. But until they get him back, they can't afford to turn it over and give up 30 points off turnovers or miss a number of free throws or give up 44 points in the first quarter like we saw yesterday. They're just not good enough to overcome those type of mistakes. The part that disappointed me about the game yesterday is that they just didn't really show any resistance. And I can't stand that. When the team they're not locked in defensively, their approach from the start, they're not, you don't see the intensity level. You don't see that commitment right from the start to get after it. They just didn't have it yesterday. And they kind of lied down, and the Hawks just got to their spots, got the shots they wanted, and dominated the basketball game. And after the Hawks went on that massive first quarter run, the Blazers never threatened again. Now in Charlotte, I think they were victims of a scheduling snafu where the Hornets were scheduling an early game on the East Coast for a West Coast team that doesn't play at that time, isn't accustomed to playing at that time, and was playing game 2 of a 5-game road trip. So the Blazers in that game Saturday were walking into a trap with the fatigue and the fact that it was in the morning and their body clocks as they were getting ready for the game. It was like 7 o'clock on the West Coast. So I can understand that. And that would explain the horrific start on offense Saturday. The defense was actually okay on Saturday. They did a good job of getting out and contesting at the three-point line. The Hornets are a good three-point shooting team. But in the end, in the fourth quarter, they just didn't have enough shot making, enough offense, and the Hornets were able to pull away and get the win. But yesterday it was like, they just didn't have anything. Execution wasn't there. Turnovers were a problem. They missed free throws. They couldn't make shots when they needed it. And every time they put together a little mini run of 7-0 or 9-0 run and got the deficit down to 16, the Hawks were quick to make a response. So there you have it. The Blazers are in a funk right now. And I guess the annoying part is going into the road trip, you thought, man, 4 games to kick off the road trip against teams that are below 500. Opportunity, but the Blazers have been unable to capitalize. So there you have it. They're going to be in the play-in. They're 4.5 games clear of Memphis. So they're going to be in the play-in. The question is which number they're going to be seeding-wise. And, that's really what it comes down to. But right now, in the short term, get Denny right, get him back on the floor, and then I think they'll be able to take off from there. 20 games remaining. What you're looking for is this pocket of time where you can get Denny back on the floor and start to string together some wins and get your continuity back. But it's hard, to find that continuity when there's been so many guys in and out of the lineup. And, for the Blazers, it's been substantial this year. Even some guys who haven't sustained major injury, they've just been, maybe it's a calf flare-up, it's this. We saw it with Donovan Clingan with the illness against Chicago. It's just hard to get, to find, consistency when you have so many different guys who are taking the floor. They did add a two-way player today, someone I'm not particularly familiar with. So they're going to have access to another guy, which could be helpful. But really, this comes down to Denny getting back, being healthy, and being able to lead this club on both ends of the floor. And that's really what it comes down to. The Drive at 5 here on the Rip City Drive is presented by McCord's Vancouver Toyota, where they live by the slogan, "We make it easy." Check out their inventory now at vancouvertoyota.com. ryanedwards.com. All right, telephone number 503-248-0620. We will talk with Ryan Edwards coming up here at 5:20. He was at the Combine, and I just want to find out what he was hearing. It's hard to believe that the new league year is just right around the corner, but it is, which means free agency is almost upon us. And that's going to give teams to go out there and spend big and hopefully improve their roster. And then we'll get into the draft. And then shortly after that, we'll get the schedule released for next year. The NFL has done a terrific job of creating a situation where we have all these different events throughout the course of the offseason, so football is never too far out of our minds. And I love it when the schedule comes out because that gives you another opportunity to plan, sports road trips, which is going to be pretty sweet. I am going to stop by tonight and check out the Vikings. They're taking on Weber State. They've got a chance to finish out the regular season with a win and clinch the regular season Big Sky, which is pretty cool. And they've got a good squad, and the Viking Pavilion it's nice. I like it. And if we take a look at the conference standings right now in the Big Sky, Portland State leads the standings at 12-5, and right behind them, Montana State, Eastern Washington, both at 11-6. So a win tonight would put the Vikings at 13-5 and give them the outright regular season title before they enter the tournament and have a legit shot to be able to jump into March Madness. And they've played really well at home this year, 10-3 at the Pavilion. So we'll see what the Vikes can do tonight. But if you haven't checked out a game there at the Pavilion, Shacker and I were down there a couple of weeks ago. It's really nice. It's great for viewing. There's not a bad seat in the house. I think it fits just over 3,000, but it's a good atmosphere. They've done a good job with that. Very good job with that. And outside of that, we're going to get into some, the conference tournaments are coming up, which is pretty sweet. Duke, one of the best teams in the country. They're on top 51-30 right now. Second half underway at NC State. And the other top 25 game coming up tonight, Iowa State down in Tucson to take on number 2 Arizona. So Duke 1, Arizona 2. And those are the top 2 teams. It's a light night in the association tonight. Halftime in Washington. Rockets on top of the Wizards 60-51. Celtics leading the Bucks in Milwaukee 37-20. The Nuggets, who have dropped back-to-back games, are in Utah tonight to take on the tanking Jazz. The Nuggets have more road wins right now in the year than the Jazz do wins overall. And the Clippers, coming off their game last night against New Orleans in San Francisco to take on the Blazers to win against. Down the stretch, if you're a Blazer fan, Clippers and Warriors. And you want the Blazers to win as many games as possible. All right, Combine Talk is coming up next. Good friend Ryan Edwards from 850K in Denver. He was in Indianapolis. So I just want to find out what he was hearing and things to look for with a new NFL league year coming up in just a matter of days. We set the clocks forward on Sunday, which means we got longer days coming, and the weather outside today is nice. 63 degrees when I came in the studio. That is what I'm talking about. More sunshine, warmer temperatures, longer days. Those are 3 things that are beautiful in my mind. All right, Ryan Edwards is up next. I appreciate your time. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, our next guest, good friend of the show, and he was at the Combine. He's from 850 KOA in Denver, and he joins us once again, Ryan Edwards. Ryan, my friend Shacker was telling me that you have 2 daughters. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What are the ages?
15 and about to be 14.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, my daughter just turned 16 last week, and so I shared the story. She got caught with her friend this weekend sneaking out in the middle of the night. So we were talking about some of the shenanigans and stuff. Have you dealt with any shenanigans yet at their ages of 14 and 15?
Not yet. The oldest is kind of like, typical oldest in the way that she's like kind of a people pleaser. So she's always checking in. She loves the praise, like I love being extra responsible and getting, those kinds of things. The youngest, on the other hand, when she gets a little bit of freedom, I'm very curious to see what that looks like because she tests me on a daily basis. So the oldest, I would be really stunned if that ever happened. The youngest, I absolutely, and I'll never say this to their face, but I could absolutely see the youngest pushing that boundary and seeing how far she could go.
Yeah, it's very interesting. What's crazy about being a dad is, like, I've never really felt like I have a complete handle on it, and there really is no blue book. So it's like we all go through this as parents, but it's like every day I'm like, I really don't know how to deal with that because I've never dealt with it before. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you just kind of go off of a little bit of what you experienced, but then, it's like I want to do better, I guess, you want to, and then, what measurement is better. But yeah, I tend to approach it with that as I just try to be fair, but you're right. There's no rule book or anything. So, but yeah, man, I was talking to a producer and I'm trying to put myself in perspective of what I would do if my kid snuck out. And I honestly, like you said, I don't even know where I'd start.
Yeah.
But, because you're like, we ground them, but like, why would you even think about this? Like what possessed you to think this was going to be a smart decision? Like all the things that could have happened, and I wouldn't even know that you're even out of the house.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty wild.
Yeah. That's the scary part is if something would have happened, not knowing who they are with, where they were at, and not being able to help. Like the thought of that as a dad is freaky. It's crazy.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. All right. You were at the Combine. What I was wondering is, in terms of general themes, like what were some of the topics that were being discussed as we approach a new league year?
Well, obviously you're not only talking about free agency and what people are thinking where guys are going to go, and then you're also talking about the draft and certainly the discussion about quarterbacks and, kind of the weakness of this class and maybe leaning into next year where, some teams might jockey for position, whether it's through trades to acquire draft capital for next year or out and out tanking, knowing that the quarterback class next year is going to be much better. So there's a little bit of discussion on that, especially for the teams that know there's several players away from contending. You're at the top of this draft and you're like the Jets. Well, you're not one player, whether you take Caleb Downs or Reese there at the top, you're not that one player away from contending. You need a lot more. So, what's your mindset? Do you trade out? And there's also some buzz that they may even trade up to the Raiders pick if the Raiders somehow get cold on Fernando Mendoza. So, a lot of discussion around the quarterbacks and who's going to be good this next year. And, again, we got the NFLPA grades. It always ends up being a lot of buzz around that on how good teams are or how well they treat their players. So, yeah, it was a good Combine. It's always good fact information gathering. And then, we turn around and have free agency on the other side of it. So it's really good.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Is it a done deal that Mendoza is going to go to the Raiders?
Well, that's what I hear. But like I said, there's still some time. We got a month and a half left before the draft. So there's certainly a scenario where the Raiders, led in part by Tom Brady, if they decide that Mendoza is not the guy and what they prefer to do is put themselves in position to maybe get Arch Manning or one of the other quarterbacks coming out next year, well, they could trade to a team that likes Mendoza. Maybe the Jets like him a little bit more, and they're willing to come up and give a future first for that player. They could be in business because they're another team that's really not just one player away or not one quarterback away. Certainly the right quarterback can elevate, but if you've got offensive line issues, which they obviously do, They got some holes on defense, which they need to work on. Then maybe there's a mindset of internally a shift of, well, let's work on next year and let's try to just get the best player we can here and add a future first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now with the Broncos, the big news, of course, Sean Payton handing over play calling duties to Davis Webb, who's been promoted to offensive coordinator. What was the real reason behind that? And was this something that's been in the works for quite some time? What did you uncover about that maneuver by Sean Payton?
Well, there's a lot of speculation surrounding it. Either way, they were going to let Sean present it the way he did. So you read into that the way you want to. He's able to present it in a way that it was his idea. He thinks it makes the team better. I still think that there's a lot of people. I was even talking to my co-host Dave Logan today, and he said, I'm still stunned by it because it's just not how he's wired. And, at one point, if there's some struggles with this first-year coordinator calling plays, will he maybe take things back over? And, that will be a discussion point this year, especially for a team that expects to be contending. They made the AFC Championship game with Sean Payton calling plays. Now they were kind of middle of the pack as an offense. The defense carried them in large parts of this season, so that's part of the reason why we're here. But at the same time, for a guy that has that kind of confidence and arrogance, as most coaches that have been successful as he has do, well, you do wonder how patient he's going to be with this process, especially if it's not playing out the way he wants it to.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see that. And I guess where I stood on that, I know a lot of Bronco fans were calling for Payton to give up the play calling duties. I didn't really see it like that because he's been one of the best play callers during his time as a head coach. And my thought is if he wants to continue to call the plays, then he should continue to call the plays. But if he really thinks that Webb has got the talent and the ability to take the offense in a different direction that could be helpful, then I think he should do that. But I would have no issue if Sean Payton, of all guys, wanted to continue calling plays.
I wouldn't have had a problem with it either. I think there's a couple of things at play. First of all, Davis Webb wasn't coming back without this. And so understanding that you were going to let a talented coach leave your building, I mean, it's not like Sean Payton hasn't had talented coaches and guys have gone on to be promoted and do other things. But Davis Webb needs this stepping stone. And he interviewed for some head coaching jobs around the league this offseason. He obviously interviewed for some OC jobs as well. And most of them, came back with very impressed with him. Maybe a little early because he doesn't get that here in Denver. I think the experience with Bo Nix and showing that he can develop him and then now call plays for him is going to be very valuable. I was talking to Ian Rappaport about it, and his expectation is like, okay, if he can show that he has the competency to call plays, he may be a head coach as soon as next year. But having that experience, having that ability underneath your belt is going to be very valuable to him. So I think that was part of the sell of all of it. And meanwhile, Sean, he's thinking, okay, well, we make this play, and if the offense improves, I look like a genius still because I saw a talented coach that was ready to take that step forward. And Sean, for what it's worth, has dropped a couple of hints during the course of the season that he was considering something like this. I don't know if he's specifically planting that seed to have it happen now, but I do think that there was a mindset for him that at his age and how many years he's got left on this contract, he might have been considering this for a bit. So there's a lot of things at play when it comes to this decision.
Well, the cool part is I've always thought the best coaches, they will empower the smart people around them when they discover someone that's got the ability to do that if they believe it's best for the team. So, even for Sean Payton, who I think is wildly arrogant and someone that believes in his abilities really well, the fact that he did this, Ryan, tells me that he's a super sharp guy who's self-aware, which is a good thing.
Well, that's exactly right. So he gets to kind of win in this no matter what. Like whether you want to think that maybe ownership had a little bit of a lean into this and they wanted to make sure the Broncos kept Davis Webb, or maybe he did come to this conclusion all on his own. I mean, either way, I think Sean comes out on top because if the offense improves, well, he empowered him to make this call. If they don't, and he gets to come back in and sort of play savior of like, all right, well, we struggle with Davis here, but I'm going to take back the reins. And, the offense is, we already know what the baseline of the offense is. They're top 12 or so offense in the league. Maybe the worst case scenario, they're 16th, they're middle of the pack, but you still got a great defense. So you're going to win a lot of games kind of either way. So I think Sean's positioned himself really well in this either way.
All right, what are you hearing about the Bills' decision to make Brady coach? Do people like that maneuver? How do they think he's going to do?
Yeah, the sense I got out there was they're good with it. The fan base has finally started to calm down about losing McDermott. So I get the sense that he's going to be just fine. I mean, of course, you brought in Pete Carmichael there at offensive coordinator for the Bills, which is going to help, and then you bring in Jim Leonard, who this was his first defensive coordinator job in the pros, but he was thought to be a DC around the league as soon as this year. So I think most people are excited about the way that's stacked up. But once again, was the glass ceiling that they kept not being able to go through, is that really Sean McDermott, or was that some other factors? Because they've had good defenses. They've had Josh Allen this entire time. And then maybe it's a Brandon Beane thing altogether. Mm-hmm. So there seems to be, some optimism about what they are. But once again, you're sort of putting your eggs in the basket of, hey, can Josh just sort of carry this thing? So that remains to be seen. But I think most of the vibe I got on the Buffalo Bills out there was positive.
And now what's the word on C.J. Stroud? Do people see him as like damaged goods now, or was he just in a situation where he was disrupted by the concussion and didn't have a run game or the offensive line support needed to be successful with that, horrible stretch at the end of the season into the postseason? Like, what's the read on C.J. Stroud now? What are you hearing on him?
There's still some C.J. Stroud truthers out there, if you will. There's some people that still see him as what he was his rookie year. I'd say majority of people are starting to soften a bit on C.J. Stroud and what he's going to be in the league and the amount of talent that he needs around him. There's quite a few people that just think he needs a better offensive line. And if he has a better offensive line and consistent run game, he's going to be fine. But, once again, we don't usually say that about the elite quarterbacks, do we, right?
Yeah.
Usually the elite quarterbacks, they can elevate. And you say, well, it's nice to have those things, but, you're going to be just fine with Josh Allen. You're going to be just fine with Lamar Jackson, even if he doesn't have Derrick Henry. He's going to create. So I think that we just have to adjust our expectations. And I'd say that that's mostly what's going on with CJ, at least the people I talk to out there, is that they're like, okay, well, he can be good, but he's maybe not going to ever be elite. But is that enough that you can win with? Well, sure, especially with that defense. It's just, can he string together some consistency that he's really struggled with over the last several seasons? And then, of course, the questions about the postseason are going to be there until they're not, right? I mean, you got to go out there. They win a postseason game. They're pretty consistently doing that. But then he flames out, like Justin Herbert tends to flame out. And that just is the narrative of who you are until it's not.
Yeah, that's definitely true. We're talking with Ryan Edwards, 850 KOA in Denver. A couple other players. What's the consensus on the Eagles and what they're going to do with A.J. Brown? Are they going to keep him or trade him?
I get the sense that they want to keep him. Like they're kind of playing both sides. Like my sense, they're playing both sides. Like we're listening to everybody. If we get a deal that we like and we agree with, then sure. It's kind of playing coy because I think they probably would move him, but they don't want to give him away, and they certainly don't want the optics of that. So it doesn't have to be like the greatest offer. I'd say a first and maybe a late day 2, early day 3, like probably would get it done. But, it's a weird deal because they know talent-wise, like he keeps them in the contending category. Like he's a good player. You don't just give away good players. But he's also, there's some stuff with the personality conflict, especially with Jalen Hurts, and how much longer they're willing to deal with that kind of groaner. And if that's the case, then maybe they get something that's close enough to that and they move him. But either way, they don't like the optics that they're going to give him away, or that somebody can just swoop in and offer like a second rounder and that's going to be good enough. I think they want a little more.
Okay. Growing up as an AFC West fan, following the Broncos, there were always players from some of those division rivals like Seattle with Steve Largent, or the Raiders, or the Chiefs, guys who I just respected because of how great they were. Derek Thomas with Kansas City. Max Crosby would fit on that list. He's one of my favorite players to watch in the NFL because I love his motor. What's the consensus on what the Raiders are going to do with Crosby? Will they keep him, or are they going to move on from him?
You know what? It seems to go back and forth. There was early in the trip, I was convinced he was getting traded. By the end of the week, I had heard from a couple of people that thought he was definitely staying. Sometimes it feels like it depends on who I'm talking to. I've talked to Raiders people. I've talked to people from around the league. It's just different perspectives. I think it's kind of an A.J. Brown conversation. Like, if they get an offer that they can't refuse, they'll probably move him. But they do believe, like, a couple of moves, including the quarterback, we want to have that guy on the defense. Like, we want him as part of the rebuild. We want him as part of the core of the team. They view him as a core player. So, once again, optics, they don't want to just give him away, and he's not pushing it either. He's a star player that seemingly wants to stay with the Raiders. So it's not like Myles Garrett last year where, he's pushing and then he eventually gets just a payday out of it. Max Crosby's content just playing, and he just kind of wants to show up and play. And I agree with you. He's a fun player to watch. Certainly hate playing against him twice in the division. But, I think that they need that kind of offer to move him because they want the optics of we just couldn't refuse this deal.
All right, I got a couple more questions for you. What are the Broncos going to do at inside linebacker?
I think they bring back Alex Singleton. My gut on some of the things I heard, I think Alex Singleton's coming back on a pretty affordable contract. I'm not so sure Dre Greenlaw sticks around. We'll see on that. He's under contract. I could see a scenario because I think Sternad's going to be gone, even though George Payton intimated that they want to bring him back. He wants to start, so they'd have to clear the decks. They'd have to literally tell him he started. They're going to pay him as a starter. He's going to start. Dre Greenlaw's gone. Alex Singleton's back. And then I guess that could theoretically happen, but that's not my thing. My thinking on it is Dre will stick around for a little bit unless they feel like they have a better option. Maybe they draft somebody, and then Alex Singleton will definitely be a starter back here.
I just wonder if Greenlaw might be more productive in year number 2 coming off the injury, where maybe you'll get more out of him next season.
I think it's a good bet. I probably would do that, but there's some frustrations, not only him with his limited amount of playing time, which he only appeared in 8 games, and limited snaps, but then after the season he was criticizing Sean Payton to the media about his practice habits, about the way Sean practices guys versus how Kyle Shanahan did it.
Yeah.
And that didn't work so well inside the building. So I'm not saying that would be the biggest reason, but I'd say, listen, man, you played less than half the season and you're criticizing the coaching staff. It's probably not a great look.
I got one more question for you. I feel like part of the reason why God has put me on this planet is to defend the honor of John Elway. And I see these lists pop up all the time. And I just want to know from you, because you grew up in the same era I did, who do you think is a better all-time quarterback, Elway or Peyton Manning?
Well, gosh, the problem is his era. And so, yeah, it would be easy for me to say Elway because it's like, my God, like, if Elway was dropped into this era of football,
oh my
he
God,
might be the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah,
because of his raw tools. And if you just go, watch a little bit of it, you're like, a guy that has that kind of mobility. His toughness was incredible. I mean, he would just get beat up, and he'd just get back up and he'd get back in there and keep playing. Obviously, arm talent is otherworldly. So I'd probably lean Elway. But there was something really fun to watch with Peyton, how he played the chess game before the ball was snapped.
Yeah.
And he played the game with his head, so much more because he didn't have the rocket arm, definitely didn't have any mobility. So it's almost like two different kinds of quarterbacks, just like comparing Lamar Jackson to Joe Flacco. You're just like, I mean, and again, that's like Peyton Manning way better than Joe Flacco. I'm just saying from a mobility standpoint and like what they offer at the position. They both play quarterback. It's just very different. But I'd probably lean John because I think his game translates no matter what era you drop in, and so does Peyton's. But it's just different,
Yeah. No, it's I can understand why Elway was frustrated with the Reeves offense for years because those numbers that he was unable to put up being in the system he was in. Well, then as time goes on and people reflect upon your career, they look at the numbers, right? So I can understand the frustration there. So. Okay, I just need your thoughts on that because that stuff drives you crazy. I just, it's like, come on, let's not. I understand, like, it's crazy now because you're probably in the same boat I am. When you run into people you work with now who, like, they never saw Michael Jordan play basketball. Like, they didn't grow up with him like we did. Isn't that crazy? But that's the reality.
Yeah, when anybody tries to tell me LeBron James is the greatest of all time, I just have a wry smile. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, whatever.
Yeah.
You're basically telling me how old you are, because if you watch Michael Jordan and then you watch The Last Dance, like I almost just tell them, like, go watch the Last Dance documentary.
Yeah.
Just watch some of those highlights, and that's like a fraction of the dominance that Michael Jordan had. He forever changed the game, and I'm not saying LeBron James doesn't deserve his flowers. He's going to go down as the second best player, in my opinion, but Michael Jordan transformed everything you thought about the NBA.
Yeah.
And that level of dominance, I don't think we'll ever see ever again.
Yeah. All right. One more question. I agree. The Nuggets right now struggling a bit. Is it just a matter of getting healthy and getting Aaron Gordon back on the floor, or what's the big issue right now?
Yeah, that's a big one, right? Their defensive breakdowns, especially in the fourth quarter, has been pretty atrocious to watch. Joker's turning the ball over a ton. Like, he's having stretches of games where he's turning a ball over at a career high that he's never had. So you got to curb that. I think David Adelman's fishing a little bit for his rotations because they're not healthy. But this is what, hey, as a coach, this is what you get paid for. You're never going to have perfect health. You got to figure it out. Cam Johnson so far, I would say a bust, but it hasn't been the returns that they'd hoped. The depth guys have been good, but they're depth guys. They're not starters, so you never intended to lean on them. It was nice seeing Peyton Watson kind of come into his own, but then he got hurt. So if you get Peyton Watson back, you get Aaron Gordon back for the postseason, I think they'll be fine. But they certainly don't look like the makings of a team that can win a championship, especially if Joker. I mean, they're 5-8 since he's come back, man. 5-8. They went 10-6 without him. They went 5-8 since he's been back. They're 1-9 versus teams with winning records in that stretch. So it's a bit of a mess right now. But once again, you know that the ability to play at a high level is there when they get to the postseason. So hopefully they can be healthy. But man, it looks pretty ugly right now.
All right, Ryan Edwards, 850 KOA in Denver, was at the Combine sharing his thoughts with us. Hey, Ryan, I appreciate it, buddy. Good luck with your teenage daughters. I wish myself the best, and we'll talk soon.
Appreciate it, brother. Thanks, man.
You got it. All right, love Ryan Edwards. We'll keep things rolling. This is a fabulous song right here. Benny Mardones. I know why Shacker's playing it, too. I freaking hate you so much. Now I'm getting flashes of the video in my mind because my daughter's being picked up in the middle of the night by some boy that I do not know. Yes, leave her alone. And I agree with Chuck. I need to have a conversation with this boy. What on earth made him think it was a good idea to drive across town to pick up my daughter in the middle of the night and then usher her back across town? I didn't know where she was at. The other dad didn't know where they were at. What if something happens? We don't even know who you're with. And then the cover-up, it's like, what are you doing? Dum-dums. 100% dum-dums. All right, 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers. Rip City Radio 620. Chris Burkhart with Courtside Monday coming up at 7. All right, Shacker's having a lot of fun at my expense tonight. All right, Rip City Drive coming up tomorrow. Very happy. I'm going to welcome in a good friend, Michael Llewellyn, who's got a long history of working in sports. He's going to join me in the studio, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. We'll preview the upcoming Portland Golf Show, which is one of my favorites. And then we'll get ready for the Blazers, who are coming back to action on Wednesday. They'll be in Memphis to take on the Grizzlies tomorrow. He, too, is on the road, enjoying some downtime in Atlanta before the tomorrow. He, too, is on the road, enjoying some downtime in Atlanta before the team takes off to Memphis. Outside of that, a little college basketball going on tonight. The top two teams in the country are in action right now. Duke is way out in front of NC State, 75-51. Iowa State's at Arizona coming up later. 6 o'clock tip on ESPN. Portland State will take on Weber State at the Viking Pavilion tonight. And Portland State trying to lock up the outright Big Sky regular season championship. They're 12-5 in conference. Montana State, Eastern Washington behind them at 11-6. And if they secure the win tonight at home, then they'll finish at 13-5 in conference, which will put them atop, which is great. And their overall record 18-10, and they've been very good at home this year, 10-3 on the season. Tomorrow we'll also do Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday, so as always, your chance to win just by listening to me here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. So a lot of good things going on. And we got tournament action right around the corner. I'll be down at Spirit Mountain multiple days for March Madness, so you can join me down there as well. And then looking forward to NFL free agency with the start of the new league year. I am excited, though. Max Crosby, at last check, the Broncos were the odds-on favorite to land him. If the Raiders make a move with Crosby, it would be hard to let a guy like that leave the building. There are certain players that I just love what they bring to the team because of their work ethic, and Crosby's one of those guys. He's incredibly durable. His work ethic is unquestioned, and he just wreaks havoc when he's on the football field. There are certain guys who just constantly do nothing but make plays. He would be one of them. Chris Jones, the defensive end for the Chiefs, is an amazing football player. Same thing. He just disrupts plays on a regular basis. And I love guys like that who play with a high motor, high energy, and guys who set the tone in practice. You got to love those type of players. It's very nice. Outside of that, light night in the NBA too. Nuggets are struggling. They're going to be in Utah tonight to take on the Jazz. And nothing of note. The Clippers are in San Francisco to take on the Warriors. As Blazer fans, we should pull for the Clippers to get the road win there. Portland 3 games back at Golden State right now. And I think the best case scenario for Portland is to, rise up to 8th if that's possible. They've won the season series against the Warriors, so they would have the tie break. But getting to 8th would give you a chance to get one win and get into the playoffs. Rockets leading the Wizards right now. Celtics leading the Bucks. Nuggets and Jazz. Clippers, Warriors. So that's really it. Just root against the Clippers and Warriors, but tonight pull for the Clippers since the Warriors are 3 games up on Portland. And like I mentioned before, if you're in the 7-8 spot for the play-in, you only need to win 1 game to become one of the top 8 seeds in the Western Conference. In this case, it would be number 7. But I would love to see the young Blazers get a chance to get a taste of some postseason action, to get a chance to get out there and, compete and playing those type of meaningful games just to get used to that type of environment and what it's like. So I think that's pretty cool. And I want to see these guys grow. I want to see Scoot snap out of this recent slump that he's kind of entered into. I want him, and I keep waiting for him to kind of emerge as the primary ball handler with Denny out of the lineup and look to be more aggressive. Like I have high hopes for Scoot, and I want to see that transition. They don't have injury. And, of course, they need Denny Avdia back. Like, if you really want to know what's wrong, they don't have Denny. And, of course, they need Denny Avdia back. Like, if you really want to know what's wrong, they don't have Denny. He's their best player. He's a big-time player. They need Denny on the floor because he just does so many things well. And he makes the game easier for his teammates. That's really what it comes down to. But yesterday, the effort against Atlanta was disappointing. Second of a back-to-back, I understand that, but no resistance on defense. The turnovers were a problem, and it just kind of snowballed into one gigantic mess. It was kind of like not good. Not good. So that's what they need. They need a better effort on Wednesday, and hopefully now with some downtime, they get a chance to kind of regroup and refocus, and more importantly, be better rested for the game against Memphis before they finish out the 5-game road trip in Houston against the Rockets, who are one of the best teams in the NBA. And if you look at the standings right now in the West, right now at top is Oklahoma City, 3 games up on San Antonio, who lost yesterday in New York against the Knicks. Houston is third in the West, 8.5 games back, followed by Minnesota, Denver, and the LA Lakers. All right, that's going to do it for me. Courtside Monday with Chris Burkhardt's coming up next. A big thanks to Michael Shacker, our guest today, Ryan Edwards from 850 KOA in Denver, Casey Holdaw, Trailblazers insider and reporter. And I'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock with the Rip City Drive, and it's all right here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. We will have Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday at 5. All you have to do is listen to me for your chance to win. Have a good night.